Welcome back to the Freedom Formula, where today we have Jeff, and I'm going to be, this is an intriguing one for me. We're going to talk a lot about the meditative arts and just thinking about how to really pull that into your life. And it's something, admittedly, that I'm not great at. So, from that side of things, I know I just have a lot of curiosity based questions. I think that everybody listening in tends to be some type of high performer, some type of business owner, usually in the fitness world. So I'm willing to bet a couple of people here are already out of the gates like, meditation, I don't know, it doesn't sound aggressive and go hard enough, which is always tends to be kind of my natural lean in thought. But also, I know at the end of a big busy day, I want nothing more than just to sit on the edge of my bed and stare at the wall for 5 minutes and really just try to decompress. And that right there is a form of meditation. So I'm looking forward to it. Jeff, before we kick off, who are you? How'd you get here? Like, tell us a little bit about you, your history, and why do we get the chance to kind of hang out today and chat, man?
Yeah, hey, thank you very much for having me on. I'm glad you led with that intro about meditation and feeling like it's not aggressive enough or to fit with people's lifestyle. Because as I got turned on to meditation when I was about 19 years old, I was very into Western boxing, which, as you know, is a very aggressive game. And I used to go to a boxing gym just a few blocks down the street here from my academy. And at a boxing gym, it's run a lot different than your traditional style fitness classes in that it's not one coach up in front of the gym leading a group of students. Usually there's three, four, or five coaches running around, and they all have a handful of fighters that they're working with, and that's who they focus on. Well, at this one particular gym, one of the coaches that was there was a very well-known, respectable coach. He had created champions at world champions in both professional and amateur competition. And, I really wanted to get to spend some time with him, but his card was full. He wasn't looking to take on any new athletes. And so I'd always show up at the gym when I knew he was going to be there and try to get him to notice my work ethic and just see if I could get him to start helping me out a little bit. And I ended up doing this for about 4 or 5 months, following him around. And finally, he started giving me some tips and working with me a little bit. And one of the first things he told me after only being with him for about 2 or 3 weeks was, he said, if you really want to be a good boxer, you should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. Now, here I am, this dumb 19-year-old kid who doesn't know much of anything, thinking, isn't that for like old people in the park? How's that going to help me be a better fighter? And I tried, I took on the practice, I followed his guidance, and it's changed my life in so many ways through the years. And I've been very fortunate to have over 26,000 students come through my academy, as well as my online students. And I've heard hundreds of stories through the years on how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives, from athletes to uh, people in the business arena to creatives. A lot of musicians and performers are interested in the athletic arts or the meditative arts because it helps you not only be more present, but be more in tune with the body. On an athletic side, everybody who's been in athletics has heard the term flow state. Well, in order to reach that place, we need to be extremely well grounded, present, and at the same time lift our spirit. And in order to do that, there's nothing better than meditation to help us reach those levels of awareness and sensitivity. And so there really is so many different paths you can follow with the practice, but it's always kind of funny when I hear somebody say what you said, because I was thinking the same thing when I first started, was that this isn't something I want to do. I just wanted to go and be a better boxer, and it ended up changing my whole life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know a lot of people, and I'm very heavy in the health and wellness world. Is just a lot of my connections, a lot of where I spend majority of my time, and everybody has some version of their kind of pull down, just relax with themselves, right? And for me, I love going to the gym in the morning, lifting some weights, and obviously throwing a couple 100 pounds over your head or stuff like that is not necessarily meditation. But the thing that I always find is after I go do that, the thing that I really then enjoy is going and sitting in my sauna, spend 20-25 minutes in there, turn a little bit of music on, and I try to just sit and like just decompress. And again, like from a traditional meditation sense and whatnot, I'm probably doing a boatload of things wrong, but I always find that moment to be super relaxing, and it just sets me up to have just a mentally really good day. So I'm probably doing some stuff that I don't even know that I'm doing that falls in line with meditation. So I'd be curious your first experience in and how that's evolved over the years. What does meditation, as you say, it kind of look like in a general sense, right? We have typical people watching, listening, and if I wanted to get into it, what should that look like for me, maybe?
Yeah, so there's many different paths with meditation, and I've got it broken down into kind of five directions that you can take the practice. There's the athletic side, which we already kind of addressed a little bit, and why performers and athletes would take on this practice. There's the therapeutic side, which is very good for our health and longevity. There's the medical side, which all of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory, which is a meditative art. There's the philosophical side, which has always been something that has been a big pull for me. I love how it opens up your mind and you see things from different perspectives and really helps you kind of be more strategic. And then there is the spiritual side of the practice. And within those, once you find a path that you want to follow, you have what we call ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices. And we'll pull things into our day that are ritual type practices, active practices, which are things that you can do when you're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. And then these philosophical practices, because, the meditative arts is meant to be a way of life and how we live, as opposed to a hobby that we do once a day or once or twice a week. And so we integrate these things into our day, and it starts to become, like I said earlier, an evolving life practice, which is what we really want when we're using the meditative arts.
Okay, amazing. So obviously meditation, overarching theme, I can see it relating to health, but you where you're at today, like what is your overall health routine look like in terms of other fitness aspects that you take care of, your dietary things that you're doing, your mental, like what does all that look like? And health obviously on our show is one of those big cornerstones that we always like to talk about. So what do you do today to stay healthy?
Well, every morning I have a meditation ritual that I do, involves some different energetic work, some breathing exercises, some movement practices. 5 to 6 days a week, I go to the gym, and I lift weights as well, something we have in common. And as well, I love the sauna and the cold plunge. So I do that probably 5 days a week. Um, Within the meditative arts themselves, there's something that I refer to as the five regulations. And these are things that are very influential on our health. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what I mean when I say these five things. So, regulating the body, which is the easiest one to see some immediate change from, is basically your skeletal alignment and your muscular tension in the body, and how we learn to be more relaxed through our movement, more aware through our movement. An example would be, think about a time maybe you're sitting in front of your computer for 3 or 4 hours, and your shoulders may be rounded forward and you're feeling lethargic, maybe your neck's getting stiff. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states we're in control of all the time. So, learning how to be more in tune with our physical, mental, and emotional well being, we can regulate these things so we don't get too far down that drained state. And this is kind of the basic idea of regulating the body. On a little deeper level, is maintaining some sort of muscular structure in the body, some flexibility, maintaining somewhat of a healthy intake for our food, so we're getting the appropriate amount of energy so we can keep up these energy levels. And then also some regulation on a sleep pattern, so we're getting an appropriate amount of sleep to keep us um, having energy throughout the day. And then we have regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is a very deep topic. It's, oftentimes Qigong is referred to as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies. And when we learn how to control the breath, we can use it to regulate our physical, mental, and emotional well being. And an example of this is if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing our conscious mind into our subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so, if we want to have this kind of energetic expression in our meditations, we do longer inhales, soft retentions at the end of the inhale, and shorter exhales. And that helps bring the energy inward, which is great for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety, with panic attacks. It's good for boosting your creativity. Then we have the yang side of the breath, which is more aggressive. And as a weightlifter, I'm sure you recognize this all the time. When you push something, you exhale, you put tension in the breath. Sometimes you'll make it audible. This helps generate energy and power and is an expansive type of breath. And so when we understand how to use this breath strategically, now we can use that to adjust our regulations and our energetic expressions throughout the day. And everybody does this to some degree. They go through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people may be like a roller coaster, others may be a little more balanced. But when you have these tools at your disposal, when you see yourself starting to get excited, we can use that yin side of the breath to help bring us back down. And when you feel yourself starting to be depleted, we can use the yang side to help pick us up. And this is idea how we use the breath. And it's much more detailed, and there's lots of things we can go into, but it'll give you a basic understanding of it. Then there's regulating the mind. And this is something that everybody deals with when they come to the meditative arts and in life in general. And that, one of the most common things I've heard people say is that I tried meditation and it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet my mind. Well, somewhere along the way, people got this idea that in order to be successful with meditation, that you have to reach this state of nirvana where nothing bothers you. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The idea is that when we do a sitting practice or a movement practice like Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga, the idea is we may get distracted 50 times during a 20-minute session. And if every time you get distracted, you recognize the imbalance, you use your breath or your posture or your movement to help come back to center, you just got 50 repetitions of being out of balance and coming back to focus. And if you do this every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to, no matter what happens throughout your day, you're able to come back and find that present balance. And that's the idea with meditation, is we want to develop that strength and that ability to not get distracted. There's this story that I really enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down a dirt road after a huge rainstorm. They come up to this big mud puddle, and on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl standing there in a white dress, and she's crying. And the older monk, he hollers across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So he rolls up his pant legs, he walks across the puddle, picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, and she's off on her way. Him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles further down the road. Finally, the younger monk is just furious, and he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "I left that girl back at the puddle. Why are you still carrying her?" And how many times in life do we got to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we realize we got to let that shit go, right? We got to be in tune with what we're doing and recognize these imbalances. And so regulating the mind is an important pillar in our meditation journey. Then we have regulating the energy. And this is an extremely deep topic and something that we could literally talk for hours about. But the basic idea is once we've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, we now have the tools to regulate and circulate the energy in the body, lead it inward, extend it outward, and to get different outcomes with these different forms of energy work. And then the fifth regulation is regulating the spirit. And this is an extremely deep topic and something that meditation practitioners will spend their entire life's journey on. And once you understand these basic five underlying principles of any meditation practice, you can see that it can help you in anything you do in life.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's uh, a great complex breakdown made pretty simple. So thank you for that. Um, let's say I'm brand new to the idea of meditation. What is, I feel like everybody would imagine meditation is sitting in a room, silence or some type of music, legs crossed. You're like, just kind of sitting there in an upward position. But is is that the first step that somebody should take, or like where does somebody go first if they're trying to meditate, or at least take that first step?
Yeah. So, one of the most complicated things for me as a teacher, I've been teaching the meditative arts now for over 30 years. And I've struggled through the years to get people to understand the benefits of the practice so they make it part of their life so they can reap the many benefits that come from adapting a practice into their life. And I've come up with three ideas that I feel like if people spend a little bit of time contemplating these and putting some heartfelt energy into these three directions, that they're much more likely to be successful with a meditation practice. And the first one is, and I'll get to in a moment the basic idea of what they could do to get started, but I think this will help answer the question with a little more in depth. So the the first thing you want to think about when you're thinking about taking on a meditation practice is that why are you being drawn to the practice? What is it that you want to get out of your time invested in doing a meditation practice? And when you have that, it may be to improve your performance if you're an athlete. And there's thousands of professional athletes out there that understand the benefits of the meditative arts these days and that are integrating this into their day because they realize that it helps them perform better. Or maybe you're somebody who deals with a stress disorder, you have anxiety or panic attacks, and you want to improve the level of comfort being out in public. Or maybe you're just somebody that wants to stay healthier into your later years to watch your grandkids grow up. Whatever that is for you, if you accomplish that goal through the meditative arts, what are maybe 10 or 20 things that are going to positively change by accomplishing that goal? So we add a little substance and depth to our why. Then I want you to flip the coin. And if you don't do that, what are 10 or 20 negative things that will affect you by not accomplishing that goal? And if you have this, it gives you a little bit of fuel. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off and you don't want to get up and do your meditation practice, you're like looking forward to it. It's not something that is a chore that you have to do. And so I think this is real important first is to spend a little time with this. The second thing is understanding the importance of consistency. And there's this ancient Chinese story that illustrates this really well. And it's about this old stonecutter who was very well known all over China. And he created these sculptures of animals and landscapes. And his work was so detailed and so beautiful that anytime somebody saw a piece of his work, they just knew that it had to be his. Well, because he was so well known, he would have people from all over the country come to stay with him for a few years at a time to study and learn the trade from him. Well, every morning, the stonecutter, he would begin his day down at the river meditating. And one day after his meditation session, he was walking along the river and he had this profound vision of this big 6 foot tall, mystical Chinese jade dragon. And he was so taken by this vision that he just knew it had to be his next project. So he spent the next few months traveling all around looking for the perfect stone for his new piece of work. Finally, when he found the stone, he brought it back to his place. And for a period of time, he just sat with the stone day in and day out and just tried to envision how this dragon would appear out of the stone. He'd feel the energy coming from the stone. And finally, when he began working on the stone, he carefully placed his chisel in one specific place on the stone and began tapping with the hammer, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day to the same spot. No change. A few days went by and still no change. A few more days went by, and his apprentices started second guessing him, thinking, man, why doesn't he try something else? He's doing the same thing. There's no change. A few more days went by, and finally he tapped the stone, and this big 3 foot section came apart from the backside of the stone and created this smooth, slightly curved line that was going to be part of the dragon's back. And one of his apprentices asked, how did you know that that strike was going to break the stone? And the stonecutter said, it wasn't that strike that broke the stone. It was the thousands of strikes before it that broke the stone. And with a bit of a discouraged tone, the apprentice said, but I've been watching you and there was no change. Why didn't you try something else? And the stonecutter got down on one knee and he felt the smooth line that he just created. And he said, each strike was not wasted. The stone was changing beneath the surface. And even though we couldn't see the change with our naked eye, not only was the stone changing, but so was the one who wields the hammer. And the reason why I resonate so closely with this story is that this is exactly like the meditative arts. We don't always see the change happening day to day, but it's through our consistency and our discipline and our time invested that we reap these fruits for the rest of our life from our efforts. And so when you approach this practice, understanding that consistency is key, you got to have a regular practice. And by doing this, you'll really reap the benefits. And then the third and final consideration is understanding that you need to have somebody in your corner. You need to have a guide to help point you in the right direction. You know, I've been studying the meditative arts for 36 years, and I'm still a student. I'm learning all the time. And if you think that you can go out there on YouTube and watch a few videos or get an app and follow this or listen to that and think that you're going to have it all figured out, you're going to waste years of time never getting below the surface. You know, and I've been running my academy now for 30 years. I've had students come in here that are self-taught that have spent 10, even 15 years trying to teach themselves these arts. And they'll see in a very short amount of time that there's students around here that have only been here 6 or 12 months that have a deeper, better understanding of the practice. And so having somebody in your corner to help you is very important. You know, our lives are short, your time is valuable, you want to get benefits from your practice. That's important. So if you have a strong why, if you understand the importance of consistency and you have someone you're in your corner, you're really going to reap a lot of benefits from this training. Now, back to your question, as far as techniques or things that people can start with, there's so many different ways to do meditation through movement practices, sitting meditation, standing meditation, breathing strategies, philosophical concepts that we study. It's really hard to give a blanket recommendation for everybody because we're all coming to the practice from a different approach. But for somebody that's never done anything before, doing a ritual practice during the day, whether it's a 15 or 20-minute session of a sitting meditation, a standing meditation, a movement practice like a Qigong form, and then integrating some active practices, which could be as simple as, you know, every hour or 90 minutes, counting out 10 breaths and just deep inhales and exhales and trying to stay present and aware of the breath. And then studying some of the philosophy behind the practice and putting some of that in there. in a fairly short amount of time, we're just talking minutes on the day, you can get a lot of benefit from doing a practice like this as long as you're consistent.
Yeah. No, I love that. And kind of those three big pillars you mentioned, it's that big strong why that applies to so many areas of life. The consistency side of things is I mean, again, just they all apply to so many areas of life, honestly. Like it, it's it's great to look at it that way, and I think so many people expect a result the moment they go do something one time, right? I went to the gym once. Why didn't I lose 50 pounds? I ate a salad this one time. Why didn't I lose all this weight and feel better? I went and studied this thing. Why can't I achieve all of that stuff? I went and walked around my block. Why can't I run a marathon? Um, and it's something where I think as humans today, and I fall victim to it as well, we just want things now. We're so used to I want it now, and I generally get it now. I can things can get delivered same day, with our phone. It's like, oh, I can get this thing right now, no problem. I don't have to go to the store anymore. Um, so I just think if you're listening, those three things apply everywhere in life. So powerful there. Um, so you've said you have your own practice. You've obviously helped tens of thousands of students. Jumping over to maybe the wealth side of this world in a, maybe good timing where we're going through the stock market stuff, all this tariff stuff. We're going through a lot of time of uncertainty with wealth and money and things in general. What is, how do you approach your financial world? And I'm assuming some version of those three rules that you kind of stated there. But what does that look like for you, and what's something that somebody listening in today can kind of take away and go take action on maybe?
A long time ago, I had one of my meditation teachers tell me that you want to create a life and not make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was the first kid in my whole extended family to go through college. I got 2 degrees in less than 4 years. I worked pretty hard. And I took his advice. And when I got out of school, I had planned on doing something in the financial world. I got a degree in finance and another degree in management. And I remember telling myself that, and granted, you have to go back in time. This was the early 90s. But I remember telling myself that if I could just make $30,000 a year doing what I love to do, teaching the meditative arts and the martial arts, I would be more happy in life than having $150,000 a year sitting behind a desk doing something in the financial markets. And I did this, and having that passion and that desire and following what was truly meaningful to me has paid out tenfold. In, I never would have thought that following this path would be so financially rewarding. Also, it's been rewarding in the fact that I've been able to stay connected to who I really am. I'm not walking through life wearing a mask, which so many of us are doing, because I'm doing what's important to me. I'm making a positive change in other people's lives. And so I think that, anybody out there is stay connected to who you are, and do something that mean something to you. Do something where you can put some positivity in other people's lives. And if you can do that, you'll always be happy.
Yeah, I love that. I think far too often do we chase money and dollars so early on that we don't even give our dream a chance to truly unfold, to show us what it could be worth from that side of things. And 20-year-old, 25, 30-year-old us and the world and how we view money and everything is so different than 40, 50, 60-year-old us as well. And you think about loving what you do and maturing and understanding the world so much more. There's just so much opportunity to wake up every day excited, right? The why, right? One of your rules
Yeah.
there of why am I doing this? Man, that makes all the difference in the world when it comes to wealth, right? So I love that. I love that. relationships wise, especially in today's day and age where we tend to be so connected through a computer and, through phones and stuff like that. One thing, and like this podcast for me is always just a great way to meet people, and just learn and just understand the world and just get better cultured, because it's not as easy to walk down the street and meet new people nowadays. And but it's
Yeah.
also, it's a great opportunity. You're all the way out on the West Coast, I'm all the way on the East Coast. Chances of us running into each other and having a conversation is pretty minimal anyways. So it just gives me a chance to just get to meet new people and expand my network. And I always like to say, of like, I'm from Jersey, so it's like I got a guy. I like to be able to say that whenever I something comes up. But talk to me about your world and relationships and what that looks like. And it can be the angle of close friends and people you live around. I know for me, my circle's pretty tight, work, and then everything else in between. But I'm always fascinated, especially for me, my professional career has been largely dependent upon my relationships, where it's just been something that served me so highly, so well over time.
Yeah. So, I have a pretty close, tight group of a small group of friends that I really consider, like are kind of my core friends. But I know a lot of people through all these years of teaching, and a lot of my students are almost like my second family. I've literally had students that have been with me for 30 years, and they're still, I've got one student who I just saw last week who started with me in his early mid 50s, and he's in his early to mid 80s right now. He's been with me for almost 30 years. And I love the guy. He's like he's like part of the family, and I've got a lot of people that come in here that have been here 10, 20 years. And so I get to be around a lot of good people, and it's a very diverse community, which is cool too. And that might not be the regular person that I would meet through my friend group. And so I always really appreciated that. I think having this passion in my life and something that I love to do so much has really put me in a place to be around a lot of really great people.
Yeah, I love that. I do forget the days when I owned my gyms and you're spending time with clients and you're spending time with people, especially as time goes on. Like, they do become close because you're there thinking about them, helping them work through things, solve their problems, guiding them, whatever it may be. And those relationships just really blossom and develop over time with that. So I love that. All right. Well, as we start to kind of get towards the end here and whatnot, I'd love to dive in a little bit about your process, like what you do if somebody's interested in finding out more and becoming a student per se, or just truly learning more about it. What does that adventure look like? I know you mentioned in person, but you also have online. Talk about those two a little bit, the differences there maybe.
Yeah, so the people that are in the Portland area, they come into the academy, and we have classes 7 days a week. It's a fairly large academy as far as martial arts and meditation centers go. I've got 15 employees, and we're pretty active, go, all day. Um, my online community is there's many different ways to get involved through that, where I have an online membership that's a monthly membership. I have a program where I teach uh, small gym owners, martial arts academies, yoga studios, how to integrate a meditation practice into their business and teach people the meditative arts, and to have a strong pillar in their program. Here at my academy, we only have 6 meditation classes a week, and it generates $40,000 a month to the academy's bottom line, just that one program. So my online teacher training program shows other businesses how to capitalize on this and use that and add this as a pillar. And and the great thing about that too is that most gyms, whether they're a small kind of personal trainer gym or a martial arts studio or a yoga studio, during the midday hours, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., 4 p.m., the gyms are usually pretty light. There's not a lot of people around. The great thing about this community is we get a lot of retirees, a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that are coming in for this type of training. And so we can fill up those kind of downtime hours with this. And so it doesn't really affect or get in the way of our, kind of bread and butter classes that are running the academy. And so that's been good there. I've got my books out that people can get in touch with me there as well. I've also got, for those of you that may be interested, I'm giving away a free product right now. It's at members.theyieldingwarrior.com/one hyphen breath hyphen away. A little bit of a mouthful there. But there you could go on and just enter your email. And I've got a program there. It's got 2 books, one that talks about reset meditation, one that is more geared on the 5 regulations that we touched on in this episode. And then it gives you some reset practices that you can integrate into your day, and a couple other meditation practices that you can do, just to start a practice, just as a way to kind of get introduced to what we're doing. And again, that's the only thing that costs you is entering your email. So it's a great way for you to have a resource there, and something that I hope can help anybody that's interested.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to be throwing my email address in there just to take a look. So, but well, Jeff, man, it has been great. Where can people? So obviously they have that website. What about social media? Where can people find you just to kind of follow you and learn more about you?
Yeah, theyieldingwarrior.com, and all the social channels, if Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, The Yielding Warrior, you can find me that way as well.
Amazing. Jeff, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go and investigate a little bit more, learn about it more just for myself, but also next time somebody needs some direction on incorporating this into their world, now I know a guy.
Nice. Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much, Jeff.
Yep.
Appreciate the time.